Welcome to the Family Scoop,
where you get the scoop in 10 minutes.
I'm Maddie.
And I'm Toria.
And we're students at BYU. I'm currently studying Family Studies.
And I'm majoring in editing and publishing with a minor in Family Studies.
We love talking about families, so
let's get the scoop. Today we're going to talk about something called Gottman's Magic 5 Hours. So, before we dive into the research, Maddie, can you tell us a little bit about what this is?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, absolutely. So, first off, we want to start with who is Gottman. So, Dr. John Gottman is known kind of as the father of family and relational studies. He was born in 1942, and he focuses his studies on divorce prediction and marital satisfaction. So, what Gottman did for this study is that him and his wife, so Gottman and Dr. Gottman and Dr. Gottman, they had their base up in Seattle, Washington, and they bought an apartment and they called it the Love Lab. So what they did is they would have the couples that they're working with go and stay in the apartment for a few days up to a week, whatever time they needed. And the Gottmans would record and analyze conversations, arguments, and daily interactions.
Okay.
And through this study, the Gottmans were actually able to predict divorce rates with a 91% accuracy.
No way.
Isn't that insane?
That's crazy.
That's a crazy, high percentage of accuracy, especially in, family studies.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's why this is, so huge. So one of the things that he kind of took out of this study is he created his, magic 5 hours.
Okay.
And so what this kind of says is that each week, if couples are able to spend 5 intentional hours together, then their marriage satisfaction will greatly increase.
Oh, interesting. So are you saying that if couples spend a total of 5 hours at any point during the week together, then their relationship will improve?
So not quite, but very close. So the specific 5 hours are broken up into 5 different increments of time that Gottman kind of explains and why it's important. So the first increment of time is partings. So this is when you leave for the day, either to work or to school or just whenever you separate normally in the mornings. This is going to take, he says, 2 minutes per day, which equals 10 minutes per week of the work week. So 2 minutes per day before you leave, you should say, you should be giving an overview of what your day is going to look like, of what your days will look like, encouragement, oh, you're going to do great, you're going to be amazing, whatever, and then a hug and a kiss goodbye. And that should take 2 minutes every single day. That's the first category.
How easy.
Right? I know, that's a simple one. The next one, on the flip side, is reunions. It's not quite as easy. It will take a little bit more time, but this one is a huge one in marital satisfaction. So he says that reunions, when you come back home, together at the end of the day, you should spend 20 minutes together. And so that equals 1 hour and 40 minutes for the 5-day work week.
And why the time difference?
No, that's a great question. So because it's the end of the day and there's a lot more to kind of go over and I say recover from because sometimes days can be hard. But it's a good time to decompress with that person that means everything to you. And so there's different ways that it can look like, and we'll talk about that later. But it's important to take those 20 minutes alone with your spouse and talk about the day, decompress, make sure that you guys are both doing all right, and then create a plan on how to tackle the evening together.
Fascinating.
Right? Okay, so the next time slot is admiration or appreciation, and this equals 35 minutes throughout the week, and this is every day, not just the work day. So it's 5 minutes per day of appreciation. And so that can look very different depending on who people are, but it basically is take 5 minutes to tell your spouse that you think they're amazing, that you think they're doing good. And that kind of boost of confidence is huge.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it actually ties really well with the next one, the next slot 4 of 5, which is affection. It's the same time frame as before, so 35 minutes of the week, which equals 5 minutes a day of affection. It doesn't have to be physical affection, but that is the most helpful. But of course, for long distance or other extenuating circumstances, you don't have to show 5 minutes of physical affection, just 5 minutes of any affection. And then of course that leads us to our last section, which is once a week for 2 hours. They want you to do a weekly date. So it's just date night for 2 hours.
Great.
I know, right? And so all of those put together equals the 5 hours. And research has shown that if these 5 hours a week are followed in these specific time slots, your marital satisfaction and stability will skyrocket.
That's crazy.
Isn't it? And it seems so simple. Altogether, besides the 2 hours a week, it's 32 minutes a day, split up in different increments.
That seems so easy when you say it like that.
I know, right? That's less than a normal TV show.
That's crazy. So while this seems like a really great principle, what would you say, kind of what you said about before, to couples who are doing long distance or feel like they don't really have time for this in their week?
Okay, that is a great question. The first thing I would say is that you can be creative with this. You can completely make this your own, as you kind of should, because relationships don't look the same. They don't follow a certain pattern. So the first thing is being creative. If, mornings are super hectic and busy and you don't really have time for those partings, then call on your commute to work or on your way driving home from dropping off the kids.
That is so smart because we both wake up at different times, and so that might work for me better.
No, exactly. And so it's super simple. Of course, you miss the physical aspect of a hug and a kiss goodbye, but that's okay. As long as you're still having those 2 minutes of intentional time together in the mornings, it'll start your day off right.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Another thing is to FaceTime at night. This is especially helpful for long distance couples. At the end of the night, you're done from work, you're home, maybe you're eating dinner or whatever. You can FaceTime each other, eat dinner, face to face, even though you might be long distance, and still have those 20 minutes to decompress and to talk together. That's super important.
That's great.
Yeah. And then another, the last kind of idea I might be able to give is to send a meaningful text. If you're super busy throughout the day and you maybe don't feel like you have time for that 5 minutes of affection or of encouragement, then take 5 minutes during your work lunch. Sit and think about your partner. Think about how amazing they are, how proud of you they are, how proud you are of them, and shoot them a text. Be like, "Hey, I'm thinking about you and I love you." That counts.
That's easy.
Exactly. And it doesn't take a ton of time, but it's intentional. And that's what's important. As for your other part of the question, if people feel like they don't really have time for this, I would like to counter with a different question. What is greater marital happiness and satisfaction worth to you?
Wow, that's a zinger.
It is, because it can be hard to switch around your schedule or get used to something else, but what is this increase in satisfaction and stability worth to you? I can't say that I'll give you a specific for your life in particular, because everybody's life is going to look different. And of course, while we do have this magical formula that can increase your marital satisfaction, we don't have a magical formula that can make you implement it. This is, bottom line, up to you and your spouse. If you want to see that greater increase, are you willing to take charge of your marriage?
Wow. That's powerful.
Thank you. This is why things like the magic 5 hours is so important, because it doesn't take a ton of time, but it can have great impact.
That's phenomenal. Well, I feel like I've learned so much today.
I hope so.
Thanks for listening today. Make sure to join us next week on The Family Scoop, where we will talk about discussing the need for sleep and the research on what that does for your brain.
We also have an Instagram account, so check out The Family Scoop to see posted content, as well as our references to the studies that are mentioned in the podcast episodes.
So, see you guys next week on
The Family Scoop.